Welcome to Team Leadership Radio and Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Cecilia Martin. Listen, thank you so much to everyone who's tuning in around the globe. And hey, if you have a moment today, let's send prayers up to the families in India who are still dealing with the aftermath of the 3 trains that crashed. The death toll is rising, and my heart and thoughts go out to them. And I'm sure yours does too. So let's remember those folks today when you get some time. Again, thank you for joining and tuning in. I'm excited as usual because I have a dynamic guest, Miss Rosemary D. Oglesby-Henry, whose works have been published in 3 magazines, including Forbes, and 4 novels. She is featured in the 22 documentary short, and it's entitled Worth One's Salt, produced by Dr. Dretona Maddox. This is a social impact film that focuses on barriers to health equity and maternal health for Black pregnant teens. Miss Rosemary D. Oglesby-Henry started her life as a teen parent, but used her struggle, strong faith in God, and social support to heal and help others to do the same. Oglesby-Henry is a bridge builder, nationally known leadership educator, author, philanthropist, and award-winning founder and CEO of an impact organization that's committed to helping teen parents master the concepts of self-leadership so they can leave a legacy too. She has received more than 40 honors and recognitions for her leadership and philanthropic work, including 2023 Cincy Magazine's Power 100 Ones to Watch, 2023 Making Black History by Cincinnati, USA Regional Chamber, 2022 500 Lists of Most Powerful and Influential Leaders in Ohio, Cincinnati Business Courier 40 Under 40, a Pillar Award for Nonprofit Director of the Year, and a 2022 Inspiring Innovator Award by the Cincinnati NAACP. Now, for over 2 decades, Rosemary, an entrepreneur, has used her business acumen to mentor and consult with more than 50 businesses and nonprofits to start, expand programs, and increase revenue. She has 2 adult children, a love daughter, and 2 love grands. Welcome, Rosemary, to Team Leadership. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Like I never hear my bio read, and then when I do, I'm like, did I do all that?
Yes, that we did the snippet of the 40, so we was like, any, mini, money, mo.
No, it's good. I think sometimes we get so caught up in God's work and in the working process, when I actually sit there and listen to somebody say it is like kind of like surreal, like this all did happening, gets happening, and you're continuing to do. So thank you so much for allowing me to be on today.
Absolutely. The pleasure is all mine. And I'm wondering how you're feeling because my allergies are killing me. I don't know if it's the same in Cincinnati where you were born and raised, but what is it like in Cincinnati? Because, honey, I'm telling you, the Zyrtec ministry is real.
Yeah, it is. Like, I was just talking to a lady from my board, and she's like, I locked myself in the house for 3 days.
Yes.
And so, yes, and we are definitely feeling it here in Cincinnati.
Yeah, so if I sound a little nasally or, like I'm breathing
Yeah.
for 400 pounds, it's just my allergies.
Well, I hope it gets better for everybody, because man, like this in Cincinnati, our weather is very bipolar here. So it's like
Mm,
one day it's like super cold, and then the next day it's like, oh, we're summer, okay, like.
yeah.
And summer came with aggression, like, okay, like we're about to do you in. So yeah,
Yes.
yeah, it's
Well,
very
that's
humid here.
wonderful. Oh my gosh. All right. So I'm glad I'm not suffering alone. Now,
No.
I want to dive into your story because what you have experienced and what you have accomplished is just phenomenal. It goes without saying. So you were born and raised in Cincinnati. I'm sorry, Cincinnati. What was your relationship like with your parents growing up? Because I we're gonna sort of move into this journey with you of
Yeah.
becoming a teen parent and now this just phenomenal businesswoman.
Yeah, like so I lived in a two-parent household, brother, sister, and later when I was still young, but a cousin or whatever. And my parents, my parents were like strict disciplinarians. They had, God, family,
Mm.
education, and respect. Love was not considered in any of this. Like my dad used to say, I'll take respect over love any day. And
Mm.
ultimately, he demanded we all get an education. That like you're a Black woman, you grew up, you represented the entire Black race.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
when you walk out this house, you represent not only us but the entire Black race. And
Oh
they were
yeah, I know
they
the
were
pressure.
sticklers for that. Yes, the pressure, like it's like what? My dad was, a hustler, everything from creating small businesses. There was no bias in our home. So my brother knows how to do hair, so he was able to do his daughter's hair, and I knew how to cut
Mm.
grass. My mom,
Wow.
yeah, like exactly. Like so my mom, she had us very, much younger in her younger years. So I was actually a fourth generation teen parent. And,
Mm.
my mom is she grew up with us. I didn't realize that until later on
Yes.
when I started to look at generational poverty, generational pregnancy, and just generational curses. When I started to look into that, I was like, wow, my mom was like in her 20s when she was raising, 10,
Yeah.
12 year olds, so, but we were close, while at the same time, that was a different age where what happens in this house stays in this house.
Yep.
And there wasn't much room for talking about emotions, feelings, and things that today we call trauma. That wasn't an issue. Back then, trauma was like, she just need a whooping. Like,
Yes. I'm telling you, I know very well what you're talking about because, like you said, growing up, our parents were really, really strict. And it was like you said, it was, God, it was education and respect in the home and not a whole lot of warm fuzzy, let's talk
no.
about your feelings, what you going through type
Right.
stuff. That was
Right.
not, the topic of conversation at dinner.
Exactly.
And I'm glad to hear that you too experience that, this sort of epiphany, if you will, that
Yes.
your parents were growing up with you, because I was raised too by teen parents. And my mom had me and my brother, she was 18, 19, and
Hmm.
they really do grow up with you. They
Yes.
grow up with you because they're
Yes.
learning to become young adults while raising kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And again, it's not until you get older, you start to raise your own kids, that you begin to understand why perhaps some of the choices they made. But
Yep.
then understanding too how the things that you may not have learned from your parent, when you start to raise your kids, you're like, oh, this is missing. And you realize, as much as you want to be on the opposite or polar end of, how your parents raised you, you find yourself still doing some of those same things.
Yep. Doing it and understanding that our parents were doing the best they could with what they had. My father was incarcerated for most of my life, and that didn't help. But at the same token, what can you do behind prison bars? And my mom, like
Exactly.
you said, being a teen parent, who didn't get the stuff we're looking for, they
Yes,
didn't get.
they didn't
And
get.
like you said, as a parent, you become a little bit more sensitive. Like, okay, we all doing the best we can with
Yeah,
what we have.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you really don't realize that, like, I had a really, when I was younger, like a small kid, 4 or 5, me and my mom used to do things together. And as I grew, transition into being a teen, you start to see things and you're like, why are you letting my daddy do this? And why are you doing that? But again, she didn't know what she didn't know.
Right.
And it didn't come back until I had my own daughter. I'm in my early 20s, raising
Mm.
this young girl, and I'm trying to do better and my daughter's like, you don't hug me, you don't know me, you don't, and you're like, wait, but I'm not doing what my mom did. How can you say this same thing, but you don't realize it? But the difference is, I wanted to be better. I wanted to be this good mom. I wanted to improve the communication that I had with my daughter. I
Yeah.
wanted to break those generational cycles. Now I know they were generational cycles, because I know the verbiage because I went to college and everything. But back then, I
Right.
just really wanted to be this good mom, and I wanted to give my daughter everything I didn't have. And I wanted her to love me, and know every day everything that I'm doing it because I love you. And, I know now my mom loves me different, but she
Yeah.
had that same thought process. And I didn't make it easy for her. And I'm glad now that we are in such a better place. And now I am understanding it. And she was able to forgive me for not understanding her for such a
Mm.
long time.
Isn't that deep? So I'm glad to know that I wasn't the only menace growing up because I was a little menace to society. And like you said, you grow up and you're like, okay, I need my mother to forgive me for my
Yes.
nonsense. And which leads me back to this whole thing too around education because the whole it takes a village really were teachers and caring individuals in the community that help to support parents back in those days. What was school like for you when you were younger? Because at some point you're still in school, right? And you find
Yes.
yourself pregnant. What was that like? Were you outgoing and social, or were you a bit of a wallflower when you were in school?
Yeah, like I was actually like, I was quiet but not like, my dad, I can truly say my dad was raising us to be leaders, not followers. That was his whole go-to. You be a leader. What if one person jump off the bridge? Will you? So we were always these raised to be these leaders. And so straight A B student, honor roll, had
Wow.
had scholarships to go to college. And then there was trauma there, but it didn't my life really didn't shift until the 90s, and my dad got on drugs. And
Hmm.
that was very difficult to cope with because I had went from like one of the top schools in Cincinnati to this urban school because I wanted to be around my older sister. And it was just, I didn't have anybody to talk to. I didn't know who I could trust to talk to. You're like, I bet not call 241 kids. I bet, like, where do I go?
Yeah.
And you start to act out in ways to just, this guy tells me that he loves me. He tells me that he cares about me. I didn't know by having sex that I was going to produce a baby. Because
Mm.
even then, parents didn't talk to you about sex. What did they say? You better keep your legs
Right.
closed.
Don't do it. That was
Don't
the
do it.
talk. Don't do it.
Yeah,
and,
and even
and it
with
only takes yeah.
like sex education classes, they didn't tell you much. You know what I mean? Like,
Right. It wasn't as detailed as today.
as it is now. And so there was no Google. There was no, like there wasn't any of those things. And so here I was. I didn't even know that I was pregnant. Actually, my mom, I'll never forget it. My mom knew before I did, because back
Wow.
then you used to check that calendar and all of us had like our cycle around the same time. And my mom's like, wait a minute, something's missing
Somebody
in the
done broke
garbage,
the synchrony. Because
Yeah, like, and so, when I peed on that stick, just everything in my life changed, like the flash flood of
mm,
everything that I knew about Avondale and where I lived. And I didn't want to be on welfare, and I didn't want that life, and I didn't even want kids. I used to babysit a lot. I was a hustler. I had a job. I used to babysit a
right.
lot. I was like, I don't even know if I like kids,
Hmm.
but I knew I didn't want to be a mother because I didn't know what that looked like, what a good mother looked like. And if I did want to be a mother, I wanted to be a wife, and I wanted it to be set up in a certain way, because back then they used to push the American dream on us. And the American dream was what? 2.5 kids, a husband, and it's like,
Right,
no.
exactly.
And it was hard in school because unlike everybody else that might have been having sex, now I'm wearing the stamp, like I can't
Mm,
hide it.
yeah.
And I remember they used to take you out of your classes. Now, mind you, I'm in like honors classes and all this stuff. They would take you out of your classes and put you in like parenting classes and home economics. And
Mm-hmm.
so it was very belittling. It was a very difficult time in my life because my mother was angry. Even though my sister and my brother were both teen parents, I was the youngest. It was already hard on her, and here I was
Mm-hmm.
making it more difficult on her. But as in turn, nobody really understood how difficult it was to walk those halls in school, knowing that people were calling you out your name, knowing that opportunities that you
Mm-hmm.
have for yourself, you no longer see those, because all I can see now is how am I gonna handle this?
Yeah.
What am I gonna do?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was deep back then. And I remember my mom telling me how when she was in high school and discovered she was pregnant, she's pregnant, she's going through all of these emotions, and then it's coming towards graduation. She graduates one weekend and it has a shotgun wedding literally the next weekend. Cut her prom dress. You know what I mean?
Wow.
It was there were no
Yeah.
options. There were very few options. And like you said, the stigma attached to it, because it's like, well, you're not going to be pregnant and not married.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So, I mean,
Right.
which is a domino effect to all types of other things. And what I found today is sort of interesting. I feel like the stigma has changed. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. In that, for example, a lot of the Latina young ladies that I work with, some of them, they want to be pregnant. Like they're like, that's their thing, to start a family early while in high school. And it's a tremendous responsibility, but I think the family structure is a little different. Even in the African American community, it seems like the parents are getting younger and younger. And I don't know. Do you think that this fast track to womanhood, does that help with independence? Because now it just seems like really socially acceptable, if not even cool.
Um, so I think that's like pretty loaded, because I think that when it comes to teenage pregnancy and parenting, it's on an individualized basis.
Hmm.
I still believe that it is a stereotype that the predominant number of teen parents want to be mothers. I think that that's a negative stereotype that's always been there.
Hmm.
I do believe that there is trauma there
Hmm.
that would pose you to want to be a younger mother. There's trauma there. And I think even within the Hispanic community, that family structure has changed, but marriage is still a top priority in the Hispanic community. Get a
True.
husband, start a family. In the Black community, it is independence. And so even with young girls, like, I work with young girls, Black girls predominantly, and you talk to them and you're like, hey, where does the father play a role? But they don't even see marriage. They see career, they see education, they see all of these things. And it's like, marriage is a part of that. So where are we missing these pieces where for the Black community, it's okay to do these things out of order? And like I said previously, like, I was like, I don't want the baby without the husband, So
Yeah.
even when I had gotten pregnant with my second child, it was inevitable, like, hey, we gonna be together, forever, like until we raise this boy, because I didn't want it out of order. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that we need to get back to that, definitely within the Black community, because we see so many single led families out here, and we're saying negatively, it's okay to be this way. It's okay to have the baby without the man. And it is really breaking down the dynamic of the Black family. It is breaking down the Black boy, that we see more of them going into the prison system. It's just so much. But I truly believe that all of this is the trauma as a prerequisite, because you're not going to tell me at 14 and 15 the only thing this girl wants to do instead of playing with dolls is to play with babies.
Yeah, that's an expensive toy. Yeah, I hear exactly what you're saying. I think it is worth, like you said, unpacking and having, a in-depth conversation, because some young ladies have come to me and have said, I want to have a baby. I mean, 15, 16 years old. Now, thinking about what you have stated in terms of trauma, um, at the end of the day, they want something to love, right? They're like, it's like
Yes.
in some way they're filling a void,
Yes.
and that is the means to it. They want something to love, and to love them back, and to love
Yeah,
them.
and I think that if that is the play, the question always becomes the why, and what is leading you to make these decisions. And more than that, if we look at prevention, which Rosemary's Babies Company is definitely about the prevention.
I think that we have lost you for a
Oh,
second.
I'm sorry. Where
Oh, there you
Rosemary's
go.
Baby,
Yeah.
yeah, there you go. Where Rosemary's Babies Company definitely focuses on prevention. For a teen to come at me, and there are teens in our program that have children, and they're like, Miss Rosemary, I always wanted my babies to be 2 years apart. I think that it is up to each of us not to just explain, oh, you shouldn't have another baby because you're too young, but actually to explain the financial burdens that come with
Mm.
that, to help these teens understand the cliff effect of Black women and women in general, how we make less money than anybody, than males throughout our careers, to help them to understand that a man can walk out the door and it is your responsibility to raise that child. And so I think that instead of us looking at, pregnancy prevention in one way, when these girls and boys, some come to you and say,
Yeah.
hey, I want a kid one day, it is our responsibility to do it in a holistic way, to help them understand the full picture of what it looks
Mhm.
like to be a young parent, and the barrier and the burden that it is to do that, and what it actually takes to overcome that, and to have a successful life in any capacity.
Sure, sure. And preventative, like you said, having those conversations, and really the work that Rosemary's Babies Company does. Let's talk a little bit more about that, about the programs and services that you offer.
Yeah, so Rosemary's Babies Company, like you said previously, is a teen parent and family support organization. We are at the primary location in Cincinnati, Ohio. I used to say the only, but now I say primary. So we're to go to. So after almost 5 years, I think it's good. It's easy to say or good to say that when you hear teen parent, Rosemary's Baby. So that
Hmm.
was our goal. Like, we provide everything from confidant care, which is emergency transportation, emergency car seats. If a teen parent is going through something emotionally, they can text us 24 hours a day, or contact us through our website or through any social media platform. We also do our leadership and legacy program, which where we're focusing on 3 generations. How do we break the cycles of teenage pregnancy and poverty? But more than that, how do we ensure that their children don't become a teen parent? And how do we ensure that their parent or a family member is supporting both their child or grandchild to ensure that they become successful citizens? And so we do weekly educational classes and educational series. Then we have Levi the Leadership Lion, which is our education-based mascot, and it connects with our Teen Parent Resources website, where I don't know about you, but when my daughter was little, I paid for a Spider-Man to come to her birthday party. And back then, like $120 was a lot. Now for those characters to come, oh my God, they're like
Yeah.
$300 and $400, some of them for 1 hour. And so, but we understand that the media makes it almost like a negative if you can't get these things. It's a pressure that
Yes.
they put on us to compete with everybody else. And most of the time, teen parents want these things for their babies. And so we created this educational mascot that can go to teen parents' birthday parties. It is very low cost. I think the minimum cost is like $25,
Oh, wow.
which just covers gas for Levi to show up, take a couple of pictures. But more than that, we wanted to make sure that we were educating babies at the earliest stages of development possible in the areas of STEAM, which we look at STEAM as science, technology, engineering, education, and entrepreneur, arts, and mathematics.
Mm-hmm.
So we look in three different areas. And because, again, as you know, science and technology are the way of the world, and the blacks and minorities fall behind in
Mm-hmm.
this area. And so we wanted to make sure that teens understood and get that jump start on helping their babies to understand STEAM in that area. And more than that, help them to understand that they are responsible for their children's education. They are their first teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, we are in the process of opening up our new facility. Yay!
Yes. The Holloway House.
Holloway House, yes. So after 2 years, we started this in 2020. We have finally acquired a building, and we are under renovation, set to open our new facility in November. This new facility will house all of our current programming, but more, we will be able to provide transitional housing for parenting teens in Cincinnati. It will be the only project like this or initiative like this of its kind. It's my brainchild, and I'm super excited about what is to come of this, because
Mm-hmm.
while we're working to house such a small number, we're also working on advocacy efforts and policy efforts to be able to change laws and regulations that keep these teen parents from being able to move forward. So I'm super excited about everything happening within Rosemary's Babies Company, and I couldn't do it without my great team.
Oh, wow. So the doors of Holloway House are set to open in November of this year?
Yes, we are well on our way under renovation, and it
That's
is something
wonderful.
else. I
Yeah.
am not a developer, but I have learned so much about the development process, renovation, but more than that, I've also learned about how community sees certain populations.
Mm.
And you see people willing to give to the baby in the burn unit, or willing to give to the mother that is homeless, that is 35 with 10 kids. But when we see these parenting teens, you know,
Yeah.
our it is a very there are a lot of people that still judge this population, and that is why we are the primary
Mm.
organization doing this work, because the stigma is so heavy on this population, and we don't give them a pass at all,
Okay,
which
well,
we
let me
should.
let
Yeah.
me let me play devil's advocate because I do understand the stigma that you're talking about. Let me just play devil's advocate. I think what I've heard is that many still have sort of a perception of this population because they feel like pregnancy it today is preventable in the 21st century, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
what are your thoughts on that for, maybe not necessarily the younger teens, but for the ones who are pushing to, in high school, and pushing closer towards 18, 19 years old, they say that pregnancy today is 100% preventable, right? And that teens know that in various ways. Like you said, they have so much access to information through Google and all these different social platforms, and they dig deep.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that?
So my thoughts are my thoughts are very strong in that, and more than what is it? More than 50 to 60% of United States pregnancies are unplanned, and that's with every demographic. So again, I don't think that any young person, who lays down, whether they use a condom, whether they use birth control, um these things can fail. The
Yeah.
ultimate primary way for you not to have a baby is abstinence.
Yes.
And if we're going to tell a teen that is 18 or 19 not to have sex until marriage, then we need to have that same scrutiny on the mother who is 35 that has 8 kids by 7 different fathers. Why are we so lenient with her and forgiving, but
Yes.
we are not forgiving of a child who
I hear
didn't
you.
know any better? You know what I mean? Who didn't
Yeah.
know any better. So my empathy, because at least if we're educating that child, we can stop her from being that 35-year-old woman who continuously makes the same mistake. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily a mistake, it's a choice. And like I said, some of these things fail, and of course we don't want a teen or anybody to have premarital sex. However, it does happen, and when that happens, yes, there are other um options besides giving birth to that child. But those two other options, are they reasonable, and how much trauma will impact that teen mother or that woman that has the 10 kids once they get into this predicament? And so I think that people can point the finger and say, oh, she's so young, but we also have to look in other like countries and identify that teenage pregnancy was not always frowned upon. It's only frowned upon in the United States because we don't have community to support these teens.
Yeah.
But in other places, they are married at younger ages. They do have family to support them. So why are we not doing that in the United States? Why are we shaming women? And to be completely honest, we will see an increase in teenage pregnancy as well as unplanned pregnancy as the government continues to attack women's rights and women's health.
Mm. Well, that goes to my next question because I just wanted to get an idea because you talk about Rosemary's Babies Company and its advocacy, even in policy. What is your flagship policy? What is one particular piece of legislation or context thereof, contextual or theorized framework that you're trying to push right now in terms of policy and supporting young teen moms?
So in each state they have their own individual policies, and so therefore I can only speak for Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
Right now in Ohio, there is little to no legislation on the books or on the records at all for teenage parents.
Mm-hmm.
When at the height of teenage pregnancy, which was in the 90s when I got pregnant, of course, um, they were so focused on prevention that there was no legislation put on the rolls for, okay, what happens if this teen actually gets pregnant. And
Mm-hmm.
so teen parents are caught in the gray area when they get pregnant because they are a parent and have the legal right to make decisions for their child. However, they themselves are a child and their parent has the legal right to make decisions for them.
Yeah.
So for Rosemary's Babies Company, for those teen parents that are the age of 16, and in Ohio, at the age of 16, you can get married. At the age of 16, you can get married. That is the only legal ramification for emancipation in Ohio. So
Right.
for Rosemary's Babies Company, our goal for for those that are 16 and over, 16, of course, 18 is considered adult, but 16 and 17 years old, if we can expand the rights for teenage parents, that would be pretty dope because there's no other way
Wow.
I can think about it. Dope. And when I say expand those rights, What I mean is teen parents are having to drop, teen mothers, I'll speak from teen mother perspective. Teen mothers are having to drop out of school because they can't get daycare, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in order to get daycare through Ohio Department of Job and Family Services, your parent has to complete that paperwork because minors cannot do what? Sign contracts.
That's right. They cannot.
So if the only way for me to get daycare is I got to ask my mom, and my mom don't want what? Nobody in my business, right?
Yeah.
Who's going to watch this child? So if we do not start to do preventative measures to teach these children to transition to adults prior to age 18, we will continue to see the poverty numbers go up because we are failing them in teaching them to apply for jobs, apply for benefits through their employer, teaching them about the importance of getting life insurance through employers. So, because we feel that they're children and they don't understand, but from the point that they make the adult choice to parent, and that is the first adult decision that you make because it's my body, my choice. From the point that they make the decision to parent, we as a society, we as parents, we as leaders need to help them transition and learn to be productive citizens, adults, as well as good parents, so that we don't also start to see a trend in these children's children going into social services.
Listen, you have a heavy lift, sister. I mean, I hear loud and clearly what you're saying, and I can visualize the domino effect that you're talking about. And even the adult decision to get married at 16
Yes,
is pretty deep because what do you, when you think back at 16, like what do you know about yourself or about life to be permanently hitched to somebody? So that's a very adult decision as well. To
yes,
the
it is.
choice to marry, and like you said, the choice to have a child. And yeah, there has to be some type of ambassador along the way to help them
Yes.
make these decisions regarding the life of another person,
Yeah,
that
I
they're
mean,
not
but even
responsible for.
yeah, I mean, but even in marriage, like my PR person is a Kevin Samuels fan, right?
Hmm.
And he's always talking about like women need to get married, but nobody teaches women to be wives. And I got married, I was 27, and it's like even though my mom was married and I mimicked a lot of those things, nobody sat me down in a this is how you're a good wife class, and
Right.
the same thing goes for parents. You can read a handbook and say, okay, these are some of the things that you need to know, but who is actually taking the time to teach these kids to not whoop your baby with an extension cord because your mama wish whoop you with an extension cord? You know
Yes.
what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
or how to communicate without cussing and yelling and
Yeah.
even to protect your child. And so again, we do need to consider this population, especially like I said, as they begin to attack women's rights and women's health. We will see an increase in teenage pregnancy. And what I don't want to see is an increase in teenage pregnancy and births and infant mortality due to reckless behavior of a child
Mm,
who did not know any better,
mm, 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 mm.
because she is mimicking what she has known or what she has seen.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot. You're right, it is a heavy lift. I like that. I wrote that down, like heavy lift. You absolutely right. My back kills me some days, but I think that to have experience being a teen mother, to be a fourth generation, to overcome it all without being dependent on welfare benefits, without being dependent on the system, to have a voice in this fight from my lived experience, and ensuring that none of my kids or my nieces and nephews were teen parents. I think that who better to not only raise their voice for the voices of those that can't say this so eloquently, but more than that, inspire others like yourself, who was the product of two teen parents, and for those who were teen mothers who have done much better in life than me to speak up, speak out, and really start to talk about their experience, what it took for them to overcome, what it took for them to heal, and what it's going to take for those that come into this situation. And it will not be everyone, but for those that do end up in this situation, what it takes to continue to move forward and be successful despite the barrier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, you said it. Yeah, I always like to think that education is the best place to start. And I know that like you said, most of these kids, I mean, they have to be in school, right? Or that's some type of violation. Is that correct? Are they able
Yeah, all
to?
teen parents supposed to be in school. They minors.
Right,
But they're
right,
not teaching them. I mean, they're not teaching them that in class. I mean, when
right.
we look at the educational system, and we can blame it on the educational system, but ultimately, I've always been a parent where it starts at home.
Oh yeah.
All of
Now,
this stuff starts at home,
Now
you
I want
know?
to I want to pause you just for a second because my thought pattern not and I know it seems like a logical thought pattern that I was thinking that they should learn this at home, but what I meant was what I was going to say was that it starts with perhaps education in the sense of the policy part of it. There's a gentleman here who worked very hard to get children of incarcerated parents on the at-risk list for the Texas Education Agency.
Amen.
Traditionally, the at-risk list consists of those who may be foster kids,
Yep.
those who may have a disability or I call a special ability.
Yes.
You have those categories of students, those who are low income, who are all considered on the at-risk list. And we know that children with incarcerated parents are also suffering in just
Yes.
unimaginable ways. And there, like you said, there's no book that says what to do with a child or what to do when
No.
your parents are incarcerated.
No.
So I think maybe if there's a way, and I'm just throwing out my little 2 cents, but it maybe if there's a way to at least get those students identified as at risk in the
Yes.
state of Ohio, then that opens up a whole nother level of systemic accessibility because
Yes.
we know that foster kids and those who are highly mobile, whether they are homeless or military,
Yes.
we know that those who have a disability, they have now a different type of access to systemic support, right?
Yes.
And rules that are adjusted or amended for their unique situation. So consider that as well. I don't know how many education partners you have on your board, but that may be a good place to start too because that
Okay.
acknowledges them as a unique category. Because I can't imagine, like you said, if I was pregnant at 16 and having to go try to get childcare and then now leaving my mama who done kicked me out because I'm
Yep.
pregnant to
Yep.
get, it's just, and then I don't
Yep.
have money to pay for it myself. And it's
Yes.
just a whole horrible,
Yes.
horrible effect. So,
Yes. And I think, like, and again, my daughter is 26. So to find that there's still no resources, that this entire conversation, once funding went out the window and the number of teenage parents went from like 1 million to it's now, I want to say, like 300,000 babies born to teens annually, which is still a huge number.
yes,
That the conversation was like, oh, we did it. So we're not even going to figure out anything else. But again, and even in Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana, there's more than 12,000 babies born to teens yearly. That's 12,000 a year. In 5 years, look at that number. And if
mm,
those teens are having, and that's just first pregnancies, we're not calculating secondary pregnancies, which more than 50% of that number become pregnant again prior to adult age, which is really what they're counting as 20 or 21.
hmm
So again, this is a huge problem. It is that's why I kind of stayed in my lane. People will contact me and be like, Rosemary, we want you to sit on the board for opioid crisis. And I'm like, no, no, no. teen parents. Now teens were using the opioids. I need opioid. Or, oh, Rosemary, we need you for gun violence. Like, no, teens ain't out here shooting up baby daddies. No, like I stay in my lane, which is teen parents, and really focusing and educating myself on breaking cycles, connecting with national partners and people across the US, which there are less than, I want to say, 40 organizations nationally that support this demographic, and we all kind of do it in a different way. But, you know, I think that there's always more to do and more improvements, but like everything else, it starts at home. And that's why I'm like, I gotta start it at home. And home is in Ohio, Cincinnati, and really trying to get Cincinnati, because when I started, people were like, teenage pregnancy, oh my gosh, she's supporting girls getting pregnant as teens. No, I'm not. You know,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
like, no. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're trying to change the outcomes. And the thing is, the babies are here, and if we don't
What are you
educate,
gonna do? Right.
yeah, like the babies are already here. And it would be very simple to say, well, they could give them for adoption. But when we look at the babies that are in the foster care system, how many of those Black babies are getting adopted? How much abuse is going on in that system? And it is not a negative thing that I'm saying towards the foster care system. It's facts. And a lot of those kids age out of the foster care system
With
and
no
they have their own
resources.
trauma. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're talking the truth, and I'm glad you are in your lane. And honey, drive a Mustang in it or a Porsche, because you know the help is so needed. And you know, we've talked a lot about teen moms, and that is usually the primary focus.
Yes.
But speaking of baby daddies, does Rosemary's Babies Company or the Holloway House in any way addresses the male in the situation who always seems to, you know, have fewer responsibilities than the
Yes.
teen mom or the woman, period.
Yes.
So, you know, how are you guys addressing that or including them, or is that part of your focus?
Exactly the same. If we that's why we say teen parents,
Okay.
because it is both mom and dad. Actually, when I first started, I made a shirt that said, I am not a baby daddy, I'm a father. And I wanted to change the negative stigma that comes with titles. And you've got to understand that, like, a title can be very demeaning. Like, when I had my daughter, I used to go off on my child's father, and I would say, and I started calling him her biological father. Your biological father, not my baby daddy, because that's very demeaning. He was there the best way that he could because he was a child too, you know. But I'm like,
Yeah.
names matter. And when we respond and we answer to these titles, they can be very demeaning. I am not your baby mama. You know what I mean? No, I am child's mother. I am the mother of your child. I'm a parenting, you know, partner, but I am not a baby mama. I think that there is such a negative stereotype that comes with that title, and especially baby daddy, because when we hear that, what do we think about? Oh, he don't pay child support. He's not there. He's, you know, and so even as women, we need to, and you know, to be mindful of the things that we say, because we even can unintentionally put this negative stereotype of a young child's father
Right.
in a child's head by the terms that we use.
Indeed.
Both intentionally and unintentionally. Can you imagine being on fire? Girl, my baby daddy doing this. You know what I mean? Not my, and it's so simple to say my daughter's father, because what does father represent? You know, and so within Rosemary's Babies Company, we address all of that. You know, how to communicate with your child's father. We address child support. You know, we are very much in favor of child support. And we explain to the child's father, you should get yourself on child support, because some of these women can be very ruthless.
Yes.
But child support puts in, you know, restrictions. It puts in standards so that you're paying a set amount. It puts in visitation, you know, and it holds accountability on both sides. I always tell younger girls, because none of them these days want to file for child support, what I explain to them is, what happens if your child's father passes away and you have not established paternity?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
child support establishes paternity. So we go in depth.
I
um,
see.
so that again, and then, again, if we start to build up these negative stereotypes, a lot of Black men and men in general end up in jail because they don't want to pay the child support. They're scared of the system. They feel like it doesn't work for them. So we need to start to break these cycles, especially for our younger fathers. And Rosemary's Babies Company does that. We work in partnership with other agencies to ensure that work is being done. And we are inclusive of both the mother and the father.
Yeah, that's very good to know because I think that one you have like your hands full in the most wonderful way though. And it's good to know that the door is open for the teen father as well, who
Yes.
often needs support and guidance and some ambassador to help him figure out life. And like you
Yes.
said, it even if there was no love interest or, this was, a teenage incident that you created a lifelong effect for,
Mm-hmm.
at least you can learn to co-parent like you said,
Yes.
along the way,
Yes.
with this
Yes.
this life that you've created, and now you're also responsible for as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot. I think that it's a lot of what I learned and who I am, I had to fumble through.
Mhm.
And one of the beautiful things about fumbling through it is I don't think that there's too many situations I don't understand. I was able to create this organization that's a no judgment zone. I wrote my book about my, not necessarily my story, but how the effects of wanting to be this good mother or good parent. And so just, I'm just blessed to be that. If you would have told me when I was 16, crying in that bathroom, looking at that purple on that stick, that my life would be here now and that the entire journey would lead me to be this person that, in order to heal, meant changing the lives and helping others, I'd have probably laughed you out the seat. Like, you're crazy. This is awful. I lost my scholarships. What? But now to know that God had a plan and maybe something that wasn't going to happen, but when only God knows what's in that book. And from the choice that I made, every choice after that and every choice now will be to ensure that if I can change the life of one teen and they don't have to walk through what I went through, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to do it every day until I close my eyes and I'm standing right there next to God saying, thank you,
That's
for this journey. And so,
that's right. I hear you. So, despite all of your experiences, what would you say is probably the key ingredient or the most important advice you would give to other teen moms?
never allow your barriers to break you. Use them for your breakthrough.
Oh, I love that. I love
Yeah.
that.
Never allow your barriers to break you.
Yeah.
Use them for your breakthrough. We just updated all of our shirts to say barriers don't break me. You know,
Mm.
you can overcome anything. It's about mindset. You talk a lot about that. It's about making the choice to want to move forward by any means.
Any
By
means.
any means.
Yeah.
Use your baby as a crutch. Use the community. Talk to somebody. There are people, people can contact me. Teens can contact me. I'm sure they can contact you. They can listen. They can pray. But you have to make the choice
Yep.
every day
Yeah.
to continue to move forward. And even when it's those bad days, and I've had several this week, the very next morning, there is light there. And every day I'm waking up saying, okay, do I want to keep moving today? So that you don't get stuck there. And the stuck there is the trauma.
Mm-hmm.
But you can move past it.
That is absolutely wonderful. And that's it. Don't let the barriers break you. Use them to push through. And I'm
Absolutely.
I'm just so excited about the work you're doing in Ohio. And We definitely want to follow up once the doors are open to the Holloway House.
Yes.
That is, I mean, that's so very exciting. Oh my
It
God.
is. It's exciting and scary,
I
all
saw
wrapped up
the
into one.
virtual, yeah, I saw the virtual plans online. I'm just like, oh my God, that looks so amazing. And
Thank
was it
you.
2 or 3 levels? Yes.
Yes, it's 3 levels, 7,000 square feet. And
Mhm.
I designed every nook and cranny of it because what I didn't understand in I am money conscious. That is a whole
Yes.
nother conversation. And everybody's like, she cheap. I'm money conscious. So when we were like talking to designers and stuff, they're like, oh, it's gonna be 70,000. I was like, does that include like furniture or something? And so I had
Right.
some like I had a really great team that kind of walk through the property with me, listen to my vision and what I wanted, and they created this beautiful site. Right now, we're in designing phase, and so I am staying on Pinterest and looking at other people's houses to design this facility. But it is exciting. It is something that I hope that once we get the doors open, I believe that the entire property should lift up the community and
Yeah.
let them know that this is not something when you see the teen to be like, oh, that poor baby. No, just offer her love, especially those young mothers. Like
Hmm.
when they come in my office, it's days that I'm feeling bad and I'll go hug a mom and she would say to me, like, Miss Rosemary, I ain't had a hug all week.
Mm.
Like, wow. And as Black women, we know what that feel like, not
Yes.
to and like I would always hug them and I would say, this ain't for you, it's for me. So they don't feel a certain type of way, but they know like she loves me and I love each and every one of them differently. And I just want them all to be okay. And okay is whatever that looks like, healthy, having happy days and seeing a future for themselves that other people have counted them out of. And I just want them to know, don't count yourself out, no
That's
matter
right.
who counts you out.
That's right. And I think they are in very good hands with you. Can you
Thank
please
you.
tell us, one, the name of your book, and then two, how people can get in touch with you or give to Rosemary's Babies Company or to the Holloway House?
Yes, so the name of my book is The Rose Who Blossomed Through the Concrete: Consequence versus Choice. And
Okay.
you can find that book on Amazon, or you can order it through our website, which is rosemarysbabies.co. If you want to give to Rosemary's Babies Company, and you can give from anywhere, or if you just want to send me a message and be like, I really think this is dope, send a prayer, a message, a donated item, you can do that through the website, rosemarysbabies.co. If you want to call us, or if someone if they are not in Ohio, anywhere else needs assistance or just support, 513-813-TEEN. That's 513-813-8336.
Wonderful. Listen, thank you so much. I mean, this is such good information and I hope
Thank
people
you.
really take advantage of the services. We're wishing you all the best for the opening this fall. I know it's very exciting. We'll be stalking the website for pictures
Yes,
and all of that good stuff. So, again, thank you for having us. And once you are up and running, we'll have to bring you back and see how things are going. How about that?
absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much. This is one of my most interesting conversations, and I loved every minute of it. So thank you.
So did I. It's been a pleasure. Thank you all for listening and tuning in from wherever you are and what country you're in. And as always, thank you for being a team player.